basically reaching out and asking for help, I I just think about, like, I don't know where I would be now. I I just I just don't know where I would be now if I was to think back on if I would not have asked for the help, if I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn, because life is all about lessons. A lot of times, we think that, oh, we just gotta learn the hard way. But why do we gotta learn the hard way all the time? Why do we have to why do we have to go through the hard part? Why do we do that? We do that because of our pride. Our pride is what causes us to be able to stay stuck in situations. Our pride is the only thing that will cause us to not speak to family members for years and years and years, and that person dies, and then you lost the opportunity not only for a relationship but also to mend that relationship. A lot of times our pride will cause us to not mend relationships because we felt like, somebody did us so wrong to where it was nothing else that you wanted to do but hold on to your pride. Sometimes, we have things that affect us and we have things that happen to where we have things that affect us to where we don't want the only thing we let's just say it like this, the only thing that we have to hold on to is our pride. When all else has failed, when, everything else has fallen apart, the last thing that we have to hold on to is our pride. And sometimes we can hold on to that pride to the point of to where it has just become a hindrance in our life. Your pride can be a hindrance in your life. And some of the ways that it shows up, it shows, I made sure that I looked at some of this stuff, if we refuse to number one, if you refuse to acknowledge that your pride is in the way of your progress or your hindrance to your healing, then number one, off bat, you can't move forward. So the first thing you got to do is that you got to acknowledge the problem. And this type of thing causes you to be vulnerable. And I know that we don't like to be in a vulnerable place. We don't like to feel like we are, um, what for lack of better words, that we are weak, that we are less than. We don't like to feel that. So we hold on to that pride. I remember just being frustrated sometimes because my I was being so prideful not to ask for help that it was frustrating me. But I tell you, once you start acknowledging and recognizing that, yeah, my pride probably is in the way of me healing. My pride probably definitely is getting in the way. What are some ways that you can kind of know that your pride is hindering you? Number one, if you haven't talked to a family member in 10 or 20 years, regardless of whether they were right, wrong, or indifferent, or you were right, wrong, and indifferent, it's no way in the world that you should be walking around that long pridefully and not at least have a conversation. See, when you have a conversation and you're able, I know for me, I'm just gonna say for me, I know that having a conversation is gonna be the best option for me because To be frank, I don't want that person to die and that be on me that I didn't do what I was supposed to do on my end. Um, and now I'm not only processing that I held on to my pride. Now I got to process, them leaving here without me getting it right. So once you acknowledge that thing, then you got to start seeing some of the triggers. Some of the triggers, or maybe not even triggers. Maybe I should say you should see some of the hindering signs. And some of those hindering signs can be a workaholic, avoid relationships, a perfectionist, and difficulty trusting. I know for me, I had to really deal with the whole being a perfectionist. That and I know that that came from my childhood. I know that came from my childhood just for the simple fact is that when you're growing up in a house where there's abuse, physical abuse, you try to do everything in your power right. You don't try not to do things correctly. So you take on that whole being a perfectionist and making sure everything is lined up, everything is right, your hair is right, this, that, the other. Everything about you had to be well put together. Or maybe I should say everything about me had to be well put together. That was like the only last thing that I really had to hold on to. If I could be a perfectionist and making sure I you know, whatever it is. Even in my employment, even working on, for companies and all of that, I've always tried to make sure that I did the job 100% to the T. Looking back on it and, then becoming a workaholic, working jobs to where, you working 6 and 7 days a week. And not only that, you're always on call, you know, always being on call, never able to put your phone down, not able to, not be checking an email every five minutes. Becoming a workaholic, becoming a perfectionist. Those were my things. Those were my struggles. And now, I'm at a place when I'm off work, I'm off work. I'm not, I could be very well connected to my my work email, but I refuse to connect to it. I refuse to connect to it because at some point in time, I have to pull away from that. As far as being a perfectionist, that's something that, I could say I'm still working on that. But I've gotten a lot better than I was with it. And, at some point I had to realize that, that's a trickle down effect because when, you try to be a perfectionist, some type of way that trickles down to your children and then that puts a lot of pressure on them. So I am very patient and I'm very lenient with myself these days. I can definitely say that, I give myself a little bit of grace because I understand that I can't be that hard on myself. I'm only human and I'm as long as I know I'm doing within the best of my abilities, that's all I can do. But I do have a responsibility to myself to be real with myself. I had to be real with myself that my pride is hindering me from moving forward, not only my career wise, but also just mainly in my life and in my healing process, you know? And like I said, that, being a perfectionist, being a workaholic, you know, and then definitely having difficulty trusting. difficulty trusting and always feeling like if you don't do it, it won't get done correctly. That was one of my biggest things, just taking on more than I really had to. We found ourselves, taking on more than what we really have to. And it's not really because that someone's not capable of doing it. That's definitely not it. But what it is, it's your pride won't allow you to move out the way and ask for help, or not even just ask for help, but also to say that somebody else is capable of getting this done and not just me. I've learned that I don't have to be the person that pulls it all together every time. I can rely on other people. I can rely on others to be able to get it done. And if I can't rely on them, then I know for the next time. I know for the next time that I really don't. Let me just say it like this: if that person is not reliable for me in that moment, then that means I'm now gonna be dealing with the trust issue. I'm gonna be with the trust part of it. And because I'm be dealing with the trust part of it, I would rather be more upfront with that person and let them know that, hey, this didn't work out, blah, blah, blah. It's because, you know, I'm working on me. And because I'm working on me and being able to rely on other people, and I wasn't able to rely on you for this situation, I may not be able to use you in the future, or, or when we're in a better place. I'm okay with having those type of conversations because I know that my pride will get in the way and be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need nobody to do it. I can do it by myself. I don't need nobody to help me. I don't need nobody to do this, that, the other." But in reality, I realize that I'm not an island. And I can. I'm not a. I can't do it by myself. And then I know that I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for my healing. I'm responsible for what's hindering me. I am responsible for that. And then just another part of knowing that your pride is getting in the way of your healing is resisting to be vulnerable. I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to sit in a place of, let's just say it for lack of better words, in my nakedness. Because when you are vulnerable, it's like you being in the front of a crowd of people naked. So because of past traumas and healing from it, being vulnerable is a hard thing to do. So that's an area where my pride would definitely kick up. I wasn't gonna allow anybody to have an opportunity to take advantage of me or to make me feel some type of way. I was not gonna be in a vulnerable place. My pride was gonna stay in place. I don't care what it took. I don't care what hell or high water. I was not going to show my vulnerability to anybody. And then when you start having kids, and then when you start, especially with boys, I had to show them a different side because I wanted them to understand the characteristics of a woman. So I had to show them, you know, vulnerability. I had to show them a softer side. Was I hard on them? Yeah. But at the same time, I had to also be vulnerable enough to show them the softer side of what a woman should be. Not the rah, rah, rah all the time. Because when I was the rah, rah, rah all the time person, I didn't like that. I didn't like being that person because it took too much energy. It took way too much energy to deal with that. And how exhausting it is after the fact. And then once you exhausted from it, it's like a cycle. And I know I didn't want to continue a cycle. See, I'm all about breaking cycles over my life, over my family, over the next generation. I'm about breaking cycles. And because I did not want that cycle to continue, I had to be vulnerable. I had to be willing to, uh, I guess, put the pride to the side. Because, see, I had to realize that sometimes your pride will play as a shield of protecting you from emotions. Because when you can put that pride in place, then you don't have to deal with those feelings of hurt or neglect or feeling less than or just feeling less than what you know you are. But I tell you, once you can be vulnerable enough to say those emotions, you know, believe it or not, well, one of the hardest things is to do is to tell somebody to say, you hurt me. You hurt me. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation so I can forgive you, so we can move on, and so I can heal. And then I had to realize that sometimes when you tell that to someone, that means you may be ending a relationship with them. And why do I say that? I know for me personally that I can forgive a person and generally believe that, you know, this was a good human being, this was a good person, but I may not just deal with you anymore. See, because setting boundaries and being able to set my pride aside to say that you hurt me, this happened, I see your side of it, but I got to move on. See, I'm learning that I can't, I'm going to say I can't hold on to stuff very long anymore. I have to release it as fast as it comes on. So I have to check this pride. I have to say, okay, now, is that really your pride talking? Or is this really coming from a genuine place? Is it really coming from a genuine place? Or is it my pride not allowing me to be able to get past this? Which one is it? I have to make sure that I have those conversations with myself. I have to have the conversation to know whether or not I am coming from a genuine place or am I coming from a place of my pride in the way. Just simple as that. My pride is in the way. And when your pride is in the way, your mind races like crazy. I know for me, That's one of the key ways now for me to know whether or not my pride is in the way, because it feels like my brain is racing. It literally feels like my brain is racing 100 miles per hour. And, I'm always playing scenarios in my head about what I want to say or what I want to do, or, oh, they're going to feel this, or they're going to, that's when I know. See, when you start identifying, when you start connecting, I had to connect with me. And that's what I'm encouraging, is to connect with who you are, so that way you'll know the difference. You'll know whether or not you're coming from a genuine place or you coming from a ego, because pride is just built all around ego. You know what I'm saying? When I think about, yeah, my pride is nothing but my ego. And the last thing that we want is our ego to be crushed by anybody, or anything, you know, that whole rigid thinking, and just it's just not a good look. It wasn't a good look. And when you think about that, you think about how many things in your life you can just sit back for a moment. When I just think back for a moment of how many times my pride got in the way of me doing the things that I know that I needed to do, I'm like, man, you wasted so much time. And the one thing I know now is that the one thing I can't get back is time. I cannot get time back. No matter what I try to do, no matter how fast you go, no matter how fast you push, no matter how much you accelerate, you cannot get back the time that you wasted, the time that you lost, the energy that you put into something that was not fruitful. You just spinning your wheels. I am in a place that where I'm about to be 50 years old this year, and I do not have time to spin my wheels. I do not have time to allow my pride to not see the things that I want to accomplish in this life. I know that if I can humble myself enough to be able to say that I need help, that um help is encouraged, and that I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to get the help, that I know that I'm accomplishing two things. Number one, I'm moving forward in the mission that I'm trying to accomplish. Number two is that I'm in a better place. I'm in a better